If you have trouble memorizing major scales and picturing the pattern on the piano, remembering which notes you can use, then I want you to try looking at the shape of the scale like this instead, using two simple blocks of notes. I'm going to show you the pattern on all 12 major scales because I think seeing every one in quick succession is really going to help this pattern connect. This video is just about the visual side of things, making sure that we can see the notes clearly, which is a really important part of learning piano. We're starting with C major as it's the clearest example to use first. So this is just another way of looking at the major scale pattern that you might not have seen before. We can look at the first part of the scale as a block of 3 notes, a whole step apart, notes 1, 2 and 3. And then we can look at the next part of the scale as a block of 4 notes, a whole step apart from each other. And these would be notes 4, 5, 6 and 7. Remember, the idea is to just see more notes in one go. And then those two blocks are separated by a half step. See, this is a half step because there's no black key in between them. And of course, we play the first note again at the top. And that note is just a half step above this block. So altogether, we just have a block of 3 notes, a half step, a block of 4 notes, and then another half step. That's it. And we can use this pattern to help us see the other major scales more easily. Remember, the whole idea really is to try and see more notes together in one go to make it easier to see the shape. C major is an easy one to see the pattern, so let's keep that as a reference image up here whilst we go through the other keys. I think I'm going to go through all the scales beginning from the white notes first, and then I'll do the scales beginning from the black notes. I want to point out that I went through this method in my last video, but I didn't go through every key like I am here. But in that video, I did go through how to practice finding whole steps and half steps in more detail. And I went over why I think this is more useful than the standard steps method that we learn to use scales, as well as looking at 2 octaves. So you can watch that next if you want to. But like I say, I wanted to make this video as well because I had the thought that just seeing all 12 of the major scales might be really useful for you to help you see the patterns more easily. So this is D major, and you can see the same pattern again. Here's our block of 3 notes, a whole step apart, gives us F sharp, and then the half step, and then the block of 4 notes, a whole step apart, and then another half step back up. It kind of helps me to notice that this block almost looks like an extended version of this block. Next we'll do E major. So remember, the thing about major scales is that the pattern has to be exactly the same, otherwise it's not a major scale. But sticking to the pattern gives us different mixtures of black and white notes. So here's E major, there's our block of 3 notes, there's the half step, and there's the block of 4 notes, a whole step apart. Remember, this here is a whole step as well. There's a half step back to the beginning. And again with this key, the top block almost looks like an extended version of the lower block. Next up is F major. So remember, we often use that standard formula, the series of whole steps and half steps or tones and semitones to learn major scales, which you should know as well because that's useful to help you understand major scales. But I just think this blocks method is much more useful to just seeing the notes quickly in one go and eventually memorizing the whole thing. So here's F major. There's our block of 3 notes, a half step, and there's our block of 4 notes. The same thing every time. And there's the half step back to the beginning. So this is almost a straight line like C major. There's just a little bump after the 3rd note because we need the half step always between the 3rd and the 4th note of the scale. Remember, you can pause each one if you want to have a longer look. Hit pause on the video. Okay, so here's G major. When I'm finished, there it is. G major, just 1 black key. Block of 3 notes, half step, block of 4 notes, half step. And this is almost a straight line like C major was, just with a bump at the top. And we need this half step here, remember, from the 7th to the octave. Next, we've got A major. There's A major. There's our block of 3 notes, half step, block of 4 notes, and a half step up again. And again with A major, the top block almost looks like an extended version of the lower block. One more white key. And there's B major, going a bit wonky with the buttons there, but I think you get the idea still. There's our block of 3 notes, a half step up, and there's a block of 4 notes, and then another half step back to the beginning. With B major, we also have the top block looking like an extended version of the lower block. So this pattern easily repeats in 2 octaves. But like I say, I've gone over a few 2 octave examples in the last video. But actually over on Patreon, I will be going over every key in 2 octaves as a little kind of bonus video for people who support the channel over on Patreon. Okay, so here is D flat major, and we've got our block of 3 notes, half step, block of 4 notes, and then another half step. This block also looks like an extended version of the lower block to me, if you think about it going the other way. So the thing about all the major scales is obviously they all look quite different from each other because the notes are different colours really, but once you get used to it, once you get used to the patterns and you train yourself to see patterns, not notes, you can find the notes quite quickly when you get good at it. Okay, so there's E flat major, there's our block of 3 notes, there's the half step, and there's our block of 4 notes, and then another half step. Again, with E flat major, this top block looks to me like an extended version of the lower block. So next one is G flat or F sharp major. We're not worried about note spellings or anything here. Obviously, we're just focusing on the visual side of seeing the notes on the piano in this video. Of course, we need to practice scales and think about fingers and stuff too. We're just not looking at that in this moment right here. I do have a video, I'll link to it in the pinned comment, with all the fingerings for all the different major scales. And I also have a guide available from the website as well with finger numbers and theory, and that's actually part of a scales bundle with minor scales and the pentatonic scales and blues scales. There's other guides on chords and things too. I'll put a link for those down below. So here's G flat major, and there's our block of 3. There's our half step, and from there we begin the block of 4. That block of 4 might be a little harder to see, but take a good look at it because they are all whole steps as well. And then we've got another half step back to the top. So the next key is A flat major, 2 to go. So here is our block of 3 from the note A flat, half step. From there we begin the block of 4, then another half step back to the beginning. And again, you can see in this one that the top part almost looks like an extended version of the bottom part. Final key then, we've got B flat major coming. All right, so here's our block of 3, there's our half step, and there's our block of 4, half step back to the beginning again. And once more, this looks like an extended version of this. I just find that helpful to see the shape as well. It's really important that we can easily picture any major scale on the piano that we need to use to play music. If we can't do that, it's very easy to go off course and use the wrong notes by mistake. Seeing more notes in one go like this really helps us to plan ahead about what we're going to play, and that really helps in particular with what fingers we're going to use. I hope that was helpful. Please give the video a thumbs up if it was. There's more useful major scale videos linked in the pinned comment below, or you can check out this video here. Thanks for watching.